Welcome to the Iowa Department of Education's Technical Assistance webinar entitled Title III Allocations.
Preparing for the webinar, references are made to the following document in this presentation, and you may want to have copies of the document handy. The Dear Colleague Letter, English Learner Students and Limited English Proficient Parents, issued January 7th, 2015.
The objectives for this webinar include understanding the Title III allocation, reallocation, and carry forward process, and understanding the required activities and allowable activities and the difference between the two.
Title III Part A funds must be used to supplement other federal, state, and local public funds that would have been expended absent such funds. Because the civil rights laws require state education agencies and school districts to take appropriate action to overcome language barriers of English learner students, Title III Part A funds may not be used to fund activities chosen to implement an SEA's or school district's civil rights obligations.
The following definitions are important for understanding the contents of this webinar. Allocation refers to the SEA's requirement to allocate 95% of the Title III funds that are generated by the LEP student count as subgrants to eligible entities. Reallocation. SEAs are required to make annual determinations regarding the effective use of subgrants and reallocate unused or misappropriated funds as deemed appropriate. Carry forward. Subgrants are awarded based on a 12-month fiscal year, and any unused funds may be carried forward with appropriate justification at the discretion of the Title III Director at the Department of Education.
Definitions. Supplement, add to the state and local funds. Supplant, take the place of state and local funds.
Think of Title III funds as the sprinkles on the cupcake. They add to and enhance the program. They do not provide the necessary components.
Think of the cupcake with the cake at the bottom as the necessary components. This comprises that which is provided by the 1.0 FTE funds generated by every single student.
Think about the frosting as the weighted funding, currently in Iowa, 0.22.
And finally, think about the sprinkles as something extra to supplement the programming that is provided specifically to ELs as it is generated specifically by them for this purpose. Considerations for funding. How to tell if a service can be funded with Title III funds. If services would still have been required due to laws or regulations, then one cannot say they are supplemental. The entity would have had to provide them regardless, so any use of Title III funds would be considered supplanting. If the services would not have been provided in the absence of the Title III funds, then they can be considered supplemental.
However, each case is unique. Determination for expenditures is very case-specific, and it's difficult to provide a one-size-fits-all guideline. The specific details of the situation need to be examined. Questions to be asked when determining funding requests. What is the instructional program or service provided to all students? What does the LEA do to meet LAO requirements? What services is the LEA required by other federal, state, and local laws or regulations to provide? And was the program or service previously provided with state, local, and/or other federal funds?
Funds are allowable for these required activities: supplementary, programming, language instruction educational programs, and professional development. Funds are also allowable for family literacy services, parent outreach and parent training activities, translating, interpreting Title III specific information, such as TELPA, IELDA, and Annual Measurable Achievement Objective information. And finally, support personnel, paraprofessionals, or teachers supporting content areas. Funds are, in addition, allowable for upgrading program objectives and effective instructional strategies, supplemental instructional materials, educational software and technology, supporting education personnel who have been trained or are being trained to provide education services to students who are limited in English proficiency.
Funds are not allowed for the continuation of staff already employed by the district, the hiring of English language learner teachers or funding ESL endorsements, required EL assessments, or classroom supplies that are typically provided for classroom teachers, such as markers, pens, bulletin board decorations, laminating, etc. Nor are funds allowed for routine mileage expenses that are part of the job, such as travel between buildings, items and materials for use by students who are not limited English proficient, including the sharing of such items, translating or interpreting non-Title III specific information such as grades, programming, newsletters, IEPs, and other information that all parents have the right to know, nor can they be used to purchase the district's EL curriculum.
State responsibilities. To assess whether and ensure that subgrantees receiving Title III subgrants comply with all Title III requirements.
Subgrantee responsibilities. In Iowa, all AEAs and 3 Iowa public school districts are subgrantees. These 3 public schools are Council Bluffs, Des Moines, and Waterloo. Subgrantees' responsibilities include appropriating Title III funds according to federal guidelines as referenced, understanding that Title III funds should provide services and reimbursement for allowable expenses, but should not be viewed as flow-through dollars to LEAs that are not subgrantees. Subgrantees should not be allocating funds on a per-pupil basis to LEAs for use at their discretion.
District responsibilities. School districts can use Title III funds only for activities beyond those necessary to comply with federal civil rights obligations. School districts that receive services under Title III are required to annually determine the effectiveness of a school district's program in assisting EL students to attain English proficiency and to meet challenging state academic content and student academic achievement standards.
To recap, from this webinar, you should now understand the Title III allocation process and understand the required activities and allowable activities and the difference between the two.
Questions regarding Title III allocations should be directed to your district's AEA Title III consultant.
Resources to support the content of this webinar can be found at the links listed below. Thank you for your time and attention to this very important topic.